Main Street to Wall Street, threats of tit-for-tat tariffs are stoking fears about the U.S. economy, especially with the latest post from President Trump on Truth Social. In it, he criticizes the European Union for putting a 50% tariff on whiskey, saying if this tariff is not removed immediately, the U.S. will shortly place a 200% tariff on all wines, champagnes, and alcoholic products coming out of France and other EU-represented countries. Well, U.S. Treasury Secretary, that is, Scott Bessent, says that he is not worried about the downturn in the markets.
Yeah, I'm less concerned about the short term. I think we've had a big unwind, and the tariffs, we've got strategic industries we've got to have. We want to protect the American worker, that a lot of these trade deals haven't been fair. But I can tell you what's not good for the economy is this government shutdown. I don't know what Democrats are thinking here, because they're going to own it. And to the extent that it hurts confidence, hurts the American people.
All right, let's bring in Rosemary Becchi right now, a tax policy lawyer who previously served on the majority staff of the U.S. Senate Finance Committee as tax counsel. Rosemary, good to be with you. So first off, your thoughts on what Secretary Bessent had to say.
Great to be here. No, I think Secretary Bessent is spot on here. The president has laid out his goals very clearly with regards to these tariffs. And one of those goals is to make free trade fairer, and show that is what he's doing, and show over the long haul, I think we're going to see some really positive results. But as the president did say in his speech, it's going to be bumpy till we get there.
Yeah, and as we heard from the Treasury Secretary, he's saying the Trump administration is really focused on the long-term health here and not so much the short-term. Let's talk a little bit more about playing the long game here. Is that what we should be focusing on?
No, absolutely. We should be focused on the long game here. And one of the obviously other priorities he's laid out here is that we've got to get our partners to the table and to talk about important issues like the fentanyl issue and stopping the flow of fentanyl into the country. That was one of these other goals with regards to this as well. So again, in both instances and with both goals, you've really got to look at this as a long-term timeline.
Yeah, I want to talk about the short term here for a second. There has been quite a bit of volatility in the stock market due in part to sort of the flip-flopping on the tariffs. What impact does that have on investors here, short term? And also, how does it impact the world's financial systems? What's happening here in the U.S.?
So what I like to tell people is they should really stay focused on their long-term goals and not react to what's happening at the moment. And so continue to do your long-term savings for education, for retirement, and those things, and stick to your plan. Again, this is some short-term volatility, but at the end of the day, we'll have greater growth in our markets. And so really, Americans need to be focused on the long term here.
Yeah, Rosemary, there's been a lot of talk about a recession, even Goldman Sachs mentioning that. Do you think that's going to happen?
I don't. As I said before, I am very optimistic. And again, I think the president was pretty clear. He laid out his goals and his rationale for putting these tariffs in place, including raising revenue, right? These tariffs are going to raise quite a bit of revenue, which will help ultimately to bring down our debt and our deficits, and ultimately will help interest rates and hopefully will help grow our markets.
Yeah, one more thing to touch on before we let you go. We're really close to government shutdown. I mean, time is really ticking here, and Senate Democrats are threatening to block the GOP continuing resolution. Do you think that will happen? Do you think that we are headed in the direction of a shutdown? And if so, how disruptive, Rosemary, could that be for the economy?
Well, I really don't think we're headed for a shutdown, and here's why. I do think that enough Democrats will vote for the procedural rule that will allow them to proceed and vote. And at that point, they only need a simple majority to pass the continuing resolution. I do think that Americans will blame Democrats if there is a shutdown. And I think that there are a lot of Democrats that see that and see that it will be labeled the Schumer shutdown. So I'm pretty optimistic that they will get this passed because again, people know it will be devastating for federal workers and others. And I don't think that anybody's looking for that at this moment.
Oh, Rosemary, thank you so much for weighing in. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.